And I'll probably want to...
Bring it up.
We are live.
Excellent.
There is no one watching.
Of course.
Yet. So I'm
Because
going
no one knew.
I'm going to go to Facebook and share this. And mute my thing so we don't get massive distortion and feedback.
Whee!
All right. Still working on managing how all this works. So so I need to go to SQPN, the SQPN Facebook page, and
Oh, hey, videos live.
videos. Yep, live video. Oh, look! I love what they chose as the shot.
You're looking up in the air
Yes.
when I see.
So let's do that.
Oh, gotta mute mine over here. Come on. This is why I like using my Google or my Chromebook, though, for this.
Yes.
Where I can have it up over here, and it's not using the processor power of my desktop.
I got my daughter a Chromebook, 12. It's like her first computer.
Right.
And it's interesting learning something new.
I'm actually, the more I've been playing with this Chromebook, the more impressed I am with it.
Which one do you have?
It's actually it's a cheapy Walmart special laptop that really didn't do very well with Windows, but does quite well with Epiphany. Or with Epiphany. My brain's going one way. I'm thinking already about our topic. No,
Yes.
with this Chrome OS.
Yes.
It uses a Cloud Ready, they call it. And it's really nice for just, whatever you would use, surfing and, Facebook and all that stuff.
Okay.
So I got quite a bit. I'm trying to learn more and more because there's lots of stuff you can do with them that you don't really think about at first.
Right. I mean, yeah. They have this. Google has this. What do they call it? Live something or other. Not live. I'm doing it now. It's a parental control family link.
Family link. There you go.
And there's even an app on iOS that lets me lock down. Since she's 12,
Right.
it has to be extra lockdown. But once she turns 13, then we can start letting her do more things.
Sure.
But they. It's very interesting to see it. And right now, all she does is she writes in Google Docs and emails her paper things to me and Melanie. That's it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I never thought I would be giving my child a non-Apple computer product, but I got it for free, and it was worth trying, and it works. It works fine.
Yeah, well, for stuff like that, it's absolutely perfect. Especially since we're always online. Oh, Michael showed up. Hi, Michael. Wave at the camera.
So, did he comment?
Not yet. It just shows that he's watching with us.
Awesome. I just wanted to make sure that whether the comment thing was working or not. Hopefully, my audio is okay this time. It should be. It looks like it's peaking pretty good. So, hopefully.
Good deal.
All right. So, shall we get started?
Yeah, we can do this.
All right. So I will start my recording.
And recording here. You're listening to Let's Talk, episode 33, brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network. Howdy all, Father Corey Stika here. Welcome once again to Let's Talk, our SQPN community podcast. We're glad you could join us. Right now, we're just a couple of us starting the new year. Dom is here with me again to start out another episode for the new year. How's it going, Dom?
It's going great. I'm happy to be here and to talk about our topic today and to kind of catch up because it's been a while since we chatted. And it's nice to be here. And we're also just welcoming people in a live stream community on Facebook, which is great.
Yep. Yeah, we've been playing with the live stream. We hope here with the new year to do more live streaming of Let's Talk, to be able to do that on a regular basis. Because it was first of all, it was fun when we did it with Catholic Weekend. I always enjoyed it, and I know the other panelists did. But also because this is a community podcast, we want to involve the community, and what better way to do it than have it live? You know, we've got Mike Kuipers, who's always been was always a regular in Catholic Weekend. He's joined us in the chat room, so hopefully we'll hear from him throughout the podcast as well. So, you know, talk about stuff going on. What's been going on with you, Dom?
Oh, just a few holidays here and there.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, let's see. We've had Christmas since last time we talked, which was great. We had a great Christmas. It was the whole family went to midnight mass. I watched It's a Wonderful Life, as is my tradition, on Christmas Eve before we go to mass. And I tear up every time because it's such a great movie. We could talk, we should talk about It's a Wonderful Life next year. Before, specifically about that movie next year before Christmas, because it's such a great movie. And then, family on Christmas Day, which is great. And then, New Year's. I know New Year's is a big deal for some people. Like, for my wife and I, we just kind of like, I look up, we watched a movie, and I look up and I'm like, oh, New Year, 15 minutes ago. Happy New Year. Oh, Happy New Year. And then we go back to our movie. Yep. But, how about you? But you've been busy.
Oh yes. I well, of course, with Christmas and everything, things are hectic, and especially this year where we had the weekends. So we had our regular weekend schedule, and then we had Christmas. So then we had our Christmas schedule, which I pretty much did the same exact schedule, just on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and then this last week, I was on vacation. For those who listen to Secrets of Doctor Who, you would know that, because unfortunately I missed the recording. I was with my family when they did the recording. I did get to watch the episode on New Year's Day evening when it broadcast on BBC America. I watched it with my brother and my dad, so that was kind of fun to watch it with them. But so I was busy traveling and had bad roads out and good roads coming back. My family lives in Washington. My brother lives in the Seattle area, and then my parents live across the pass there, about 2 hours from Seattle. And so I had to travel out and travel back, and just bouncing around and here, there, and everywhere. And I get back, and now I need a vacation from my vacation. I joke too. I celebrated New Year's Day coming in Mountain Time, though I was in Pacific Time. In other words, I celebrated at 11 o'clock Pacific Time.
Yes, and then you can go to bed before they have to wait till midnight.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but no, it's been busy. I'm hoping this week will be quieter. I've got some stuff I want to do, including the live streaming stuff that Dom is using right now. Yep. I want to kind of learn that so I can start doing that on a regular basis. But it's just Christmas and New Year's is a busy time for everybody, but priests, we have the double responsibility of our religious responsibilities. So,
and you've got this little bit of space in between Christmas and the beginning of Lent that you could get some things done. I know how that is. This year, because it's, I think, middle of February. Like it's around middle of February is when Ash Wednesday starts. So we got about a month and a half that we can kind of take a deep breath and go, okay, what's next? Right. Although we're not quite done with Christmas, right? Today is the right before the last day of, gosh, what is it? The Christmas season? Christmas.
Okay, so it's the last day of the 12 days of Christmas.
Okay. Right. Okay. So the Christmas octave was last Tuesday. That was the last day.
Correct. Yeah. So the Christmas octave runs from Christmas to New Year's Day.
Okay.
The last day of the octave is New Year's Day,
and then the 12th day of Christmas.
We are on the 12th day of Christmas.
Okay. All right. And then, but the Christmas season, and I'm going to use air quotes for the people in the live stream, ends Christmas on what is it? Candlemas.
Candlemas, which is also known as the Baptism of the Lord.
Okay, and when is that?
Next weekend.
Okay, all right. So it's very, very complicated. But all I know is my tree stays up till Epiphany.
Let's throw another spin on that. I think the traditional date of the presentation of the Lord is February 2nd.
Right.
And in the older calendar, that was the end of the Christmas season.
Yeah. Well,
so it went another whole month in the old calendar. The new calendar, it ends on the baptism. So when next weekend, when we celebrate baptism of the Lord, that's both the last day of the Christmas season and the first day of the first week in ordinary time.
So I think if you put your decorations up out at Thanksgiving, you really need to keep them up until February 2nd, and just like take a what is it, a fifth of the year is Christmas,
or just be a redneck and just leave them up.
Just leave them, right. Honey, it's time to change out the tree. This one's dead again.
Yeah. Just don't turn them on until it's time. Right. I've often joked, if I ever have to build a rectory, I want to basically get LED lights that are permanently built into the structure of the house. So all I have to do is flip a switch and they come on. You don't see them the rest of the year, but they're there when it's time. Just don't even worry about having to redecorate the house. It's just they're there.
Exactly. It should be should be Christmas all year round. I mean, maybe that's what
exactly. It is. Wasn't there a Doctor Who Christmas special where there was Christmas year round because of the Christmas planet?
Yes,
I think there was.
Yes, that was
the last Matt Smith one. I think it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was Christmas every day. Yeah. That's a whole nother geekery. That's a whole nother podcast. Yeah, Mike says Groundhog Christmas in the chat room. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you're gonna have a Groundhog Day, like a scenario where it's every day's the same, maybe Christmas might be the good one to have because unless you're a priest.
unless you're a priest, because then it's it's busy time. It's like I got to do this over and over. No, kidding.
Right.
No, we priests, we really do love celebrating Mass. We really do love being around our people. It's just for some of us, it wears us out.
Well, it's like being a parent. I love my kids, but sometimes they wear me out.
Yeah, exactly. So, we talk about Christmas, but the feast that we are going to celebrate tomorrow as we record this, as you listen to it, it was last weekend, is the Feast of the Epiphany.
Yep.
And that is, the 13th day of Christmas, if you want to call it that. And, of course, for those who don't realize, for many churches, many groups, this is their gift-giving time.
It is for my family.
For the feast, for the Feast of the Epiphany, it is the gift-giving time. Not Christmas Day, the day of the Lord's birth, but the Feast of the Epiphany. Now, so Don, why did your family do it that way?
Well, this is something I inherited from Melanie's family. My family growing up, we just did presents on Christmas, but Melanie's family has given her an Epiphany, and so what happens is we get a stocking on Christmas morning, and Santa brings some gifts for the kids.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And then on Epiphany is when we do family gifts. And that's the way we get all the good sales. No, that's not
yeah, exactly. You get all the after Christmas sales and the New Year sales. And
yeah. No, the reason, and it's because it's the day that Jesus got his presents. This is the day we believe, when the Bible tells us that the wise men, the Magi, showed up and they brought their presents of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And the best Christmas presents ever, and for Jesus for his birthday, and so that's when we do our gifts, and it's actually a nice way to really extend the feeling of Christmas for the kids, because they anticipate the gift giving, and they think about what it means throughout to Epiphany, and it makes Epiphany a big deal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure as a kid I would have loved that. We get 2 days of gifts.
Yeah. Well,
we can do this.
We're always jealous of the Jewish kids who got Hanukkah. They got a gift every day for a week.
Exactly.
The thing that kind of gets me, though, is Epiphany technically should be the 13th day after Christmas, but like we do a lot of things in the church in the United States, we kind of make it the first Sunday after New Year's. And so it's shorter or longer some years. So for us, we just celebrate it on the 6th, and that's just make it that way and just be done with it that way.
Well, and that is the traditional day, and there is arguments in the church, and I'm one of them on this side, that it really should not be moved.
Yeah,
it should be. We've got no one would ever. I was thinking about this year. No one would ever think, it's too hard to make people to go to Mass on Christmas, so we shouldn't just move Christmas to the weekend.
Yes.
Any bishop who thought that, any priest who ever said that, would be run out of town on the next train, whether it's Amtrak or not.
Exactly.
On it
or under it.
On it, under it, over it, doesn't matter. Yeah. no one would ever think that, because we don't, or we celebrate Christmas on Christmas,
Right.
And why should we move Epiphany, which is arguably just as important of a feast?
Yes.
And again, in some churches, the Eastern churches especially, Epiphany is actually the bigger feast than Christmas is. Christmas
Right.
is a feast they mark, but they don't mark it the way we do.
Yeah, they call Epiphany a lot of places, especially I think in Latin American countries, Little Christmas. I mean, it is
Right.
It is Christmas. So yeah, I agree. I mean, I get the arguments for moving feast days to the closest Sunday because more people will be there and can hear the preaching about it. But it's a balance. Is it about celebrating the feast properly? Is it about accommodating things that people's behavior now, or encouraging them to change their behavior? I mean, that's sort of the balance, and I fall on your side on that one.
And it's kind of the thing of, we need, we've lost the sense that our faith is something that should impact us.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just impact us as in, oh, it feels so wonderful to be a Catholic,
Right.
But I mean impact us as in, okay, I've got to work today, I've got the kids to deal with, and oh, by the way, Mass is at 5:30 for the holy day of obligation.
You have to kind of change your life a little bit to fit in these holy days. Yeah.
And it's, I know, and I know that the Catholic Church isn't the only one where we have arguments that. I know Jewish practitioners have, similar arguments for their holy days of, how do you practice that, and how do you recognize that? And, Muslims, same thing, Ramadan and stuff like that, So this is not, this is not unique to the Catholic Church. Of course, we're talking from that perspective.
Right.
But, we should be visible in practicing these holy days, like the Feast of the Epiphany.
Yep.
It should be, it's an important day for the Catholics. They're going to church. Wonder what's going on.
That's true. Right.
But
yeah.
Now the reason for the gifts is, of course, you mentioned it, Dom, going back to the Bible, we see that after Christ was born, that there are these wise men, or the Magi, or the three kings of Orient are,
right.
But that they traveled from a distant land, I almost wish Jimmy Aiken was on, because of course he could talk about this so eloquently.
Well, there's a plan to talk about I think it's this year, the plan to talk about the Magi on Jimmy Aiken's Mysterious World podcast next Christmas time. So
excellent.
I think that's on the list. So that'll be
something to watch for next December, January area, because that would be a good one to hear what he has to say. Yep. And of course, he's a walking encyclopedia, so he knows a lot about. I think he's forgotten more than I'll ever learn.
Exactly.
Exactly. But these Magi, these wise men came, I think generally we still consider, from the region of Babylon, Persia, kind of that area, modern day Iraq, Iran,
right.
To present these gifts, these gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And, I love the song We Three Kings, because it really describes the theology behind those gifts.
Yes.
Right.
There's a meaning to gold, frankincense, and myrrh. There's a symbolism in there.
Right. You've got, the song says, gold I bring to crown him again. Mm-hmm. Frankincense owns a deity nigh. Myrrh is mine. Its bitter perfume breathes a life of gathering gloom, sealed in the stone-cold tomb.
Right. So gold is obvious. Gold is a gift of a king. The king has gold.
Right.
Okay.
You give him gold,
Right.
The incense is, you offer incense to God. The frankincense is offered to God. We still do that today, yep. The church. I wish more churches would, and I understand allergies and all that, but yeah. I love incense. I love making nice big clouds of smoke, holy smoke.
Smells and bells.
Yep, exactly. So we offer that incense to God, and then, of course, the myrrh, which was used as an anointing after the body, anointing the body after death,
right.
Before it was sealed in the tomb. So those ideas of those gifts showing, he's a king, he's God, but he came to die for us.
Right. It's pretty awesome. And then the practicality of the gifts, because when you think about it, an amount of gold, an amount of incense, an amount of myrrh, these are all commodities, economic commodities, just from a practical point of view. And Mary and Joseph and Jesus are about to flee to a foreign land. They're going to need some cash to pay for their living expenses. And so it's such a, I mean, there's the spiritual symbolism, there's a symbolism that goes down through the ages, and then there's a very practical application of these gifts. I just love that part of the story.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's something, I guess, admittedly something I've really never thought about, but yeah, they could, at a minimum, sell the frankincense and myrrh and use all the gold they got from that and, you know, use it for their travels.
Yeah. Because they stayed there for 3 years, if I remember correctly, right? In
Egypt?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I know the scripture doesn't specifically say.
Right.
You know, like we know, I mean, one thing to be clear, we know that the wise men didn't take 13 days to get from where they were to Bethlehem.
Right.
We know they were in Bethlehem for up to 2 years, and we know they were up for 2 years because that's what King Herod wanted to kill, was all young boys 2 years and younger.
Right.
So we know that. We know they as soon as the threat was made known to Joseph through the angel, through his dream, you know, they went to Egypt immediately. Now, there are some traditions that he was actually about 7 or 8, I want to say, off the top of my head. I think it was the Proto-Evangelium of James. Again, Jimmy will get much more into this. I'm doing this off the top of my head. You know, he'll have it much better researched. But so it is actually closer, probably about 5 years or 5 to 7 years that they might have been in Egypt before they returned to Nazareth.
Right.
You know, so they actually stayed there for a while because there was a Jewish community still in Egypt or had returned to Egypt eventually.
Right.
You know, I think probably even dating back to when Jeremiah's time, the prophet Jeremiah's time, when the Babylonians took over.
Right. And Egypt is a kingdom. There's work there. You know, I mean, that's, you know, that sort of thing happens.
Well, and it was also part of the Roman Empire. That's one thing personal pet peeve is when people use the Christmas story for their political messages, whether they're good messages or not.
Right.
You know, but the idea of, you know, Jesus was a refugee. You know, they were a poor family.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, once they got the gold, frankincense, and myrrh, they weren't a poor family anymore.
They were not.
Secondly, he was going from one part of the Roman Empire to another part of the Roman Empire. At that time, Egypt was a conquered part of the Roman Empire.
Right. More akin to going from Montana to Massachusetts than it is to going from one country to another.
Exactly.
I mean, I get it was a kind of a political persecution. I mean, that's true. Herod saw Jesus as a potential rival for the throne and his control. I get that. But I just, like you, I don't like when we use the gospel stories, especially the Christmas story, to make a political point too much. I mean, we want to apply our faith to the world,
right? But
sometimes, I don't know, it's overdone a little bit.
I think there's two ways to do it. I mean, we could do it. We can say, you know, just reflecting on the fact that our Lord, there's whether it affects me or if I'm using it to guilt others, I guess is my way of putting it.
Exactly. Right.
And it's one thing to sit there and say, well, I need to help those who are refugees. I need to help the poor. I need to do what I can do, whether it is giving money to charities that work with refugees, whether it is personally, you know, giving my life over to serving refugees, because Christ, you know, had this political persecution at a young age, and I need to do what I can to make sure that's not happening in our world today. Or is it posting the Jesus was a refugee meme and aren't I so special because I just guilted everybody into this because I used a meme on the internet? Right. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of that right now.
Yeah. Using memes to memes are fun to when they're amusing or they, you know, sometimes they're quirky, but yeah, they can get overdone. You know, one of the things I like about Epiphany is some of the traditions that we're sort of rediscovering. Some people never lost them, but I'm discovering. And one of them I love is the chalking the door.
Yes.
Which is a house blessing.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, like, so what's involved in the? So do you have to have blessed chalk to do it, or?
That is part of the tradition. It's not necessary, but it is part of the tradition. Actually, my parents have on their refrigerator something from a previous parish, from the parish they were at before they moved to Washington. That was in the bulletin. I want to find that, and I should have done that this week, and I didn't. I did the bulletin before I left, so it's too late. But there is that tradition, where you can use any chalk, but yes, there is the idea that the parish would bless chalk and then distribute it to parishioners to do this. And it doesn't have to be fancy liturgical chalk. It could be good old Crayola chalk, you know.
I'm going to use driveway chalk with my kids.
Yeah, five for $1 at the dollar store chalk,
Right.
But it's and you just write the little phrase or the letters and numbers over the door while you kind of say a blessing over your house.
Right. So what you write is, so it's like, so you have the year. So this year it's 2019. So and you do 20, and then in between 20 and the 19, so from my understanding, is you put like a plus sign, which is the cross, and then C plus M plus B plus, and then this year it'll be 19. And that's obviously the CMB is the initials of what the traditional names, we understand, there's not in the Bible, but Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's one of the traditions. I mean, that is the tradition. That's why you use the CMB. But there's also, it's got a second meaning. In Latin, Christus mansionem benedicat.
Yep.
Christ bless this house.
Oh, cool. I love how when those things happen.
There's just that and part of the reason is that you when you're talking about the translations, again, Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar, but there's also Gaspar is another way that Caspar is translated, so it doesn't quite work that way.
Yes,
but it's so interesting that there's these different layers of these traditions and everything. But the idea is that it is a annual blessing of the house, and you do the sign of the cross, or you draw a cross between each of the letters and between the 20 and the 19 and all that, and you'll see it is being rediscovered.
Yes, and
I think that's a good thing, that we are starting to find these traditions that, whether just neglect, just people forgot about them. I hate to say it, there are some people who tried to actively discourage these kind of traditions.
Yeah, they felt they thought they were old or superstitious, or
that's so 1500s. We don't need that anymore.
Right. People embarrassed by it sometimes.
Yep.
One of the things I love is symbolism, because writing over the door, that's a biblical thing that reminds us of the Passover in Exodus.
Exactly.
And the Lord delivering his people through the death of the firstborn. And, so, I mean, again, we have the Christ child who was born to die for us, and the firstborn, in the Passover. I mean, I love that symbolism. And the other thing I really like is this thinking about the Magi, how they were the first, you could say, Gentile disciples. I mean, we don't know much about. I don't know how much we know about what they believed, but they did in a way bring the good news of Christ to the world. I mean, they were the first ones to do that, and so I like that we honor them in this way, and that we have these symbols, and so when we do this with my kids, I found the Carmelites have a house blessing on their website, and I'll put a link in the show notes. It'll be too late for this year when people hear it. When this releases, but I mean, you could still do it. I mean, you don't have to. It's nothing that says you can't still do it. And the church doesn't, say, "Oh, it's too late." But I'll put a link in the show notes to it. But it kind of walks through the prayer and the reading and gives that symbolism. And I love exposing the kids to these things. It makes them think, and it makes an impact. So it's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's just so much. And so many of these traditions have such deep theology, this theology and the spirituality behind them. You got to look sometimes. I mean, it's not like it's going to slap you in the face with it, but just the idea of, every year dedicating our house to Christ, asking that Christ bless our house, that he be present in our house, through our family, and it's similar to the enshrining of the Sacred Heart.
Yes.
And having a priest coming in and bless your house. It's all these traditions, these rituals that we do because we want our house to be a holy place.
Right.
We want our house, the family, the Second Vatican Council was very clear about this. The family is the domestic church.
Right.
It's the lowest, if you will, it's the lowest unit of the smallest unit, the core unit of the church.
Right.
We talk about, in our country too, in the United States, we talk about, the family is the basis of our country. If our family is suffering, our country is suffering.
Right.
And it's the same thing in the church. If our families are suffering in the church as a whole is suffering. Yeah. And, and I hate to say it, but I think a lot of problems we have in the church today is because of the families in our church suffering.
Right.
So these traditions are good because they help to rebuild the family, to bring that holiness to the family, to bring that practice of the faith to the family, that the kids see their parents practicing their faith, yes, living their faith.
That's a huge one. Like parents, it's so easy to do these little things and just follow the formula, just do it. Like yep. A lot of parents, they want their kids to be Catholic, but they don't know, like, okay, so I take my kids to religious ed, Sunday school, CCD, whatever you call it, in your parish. We take them to that. I don't know what else to do. Well, do things like this. There's another great website, CatholicCulture.org. I think it's .org.
Yep.
Where they have a lot of stuff for like just ways that families can observe the different seasons of the church, the different feasts, you don't have to do it all. I mean, that's the other thing is you don't have to do it all. Just do some of it. Another one is a book by Lila Lawler and David Clayton called, and I'm forgetting it, let's see, I'm gonna have to vamp. It's about living the little oratory, a beginner's guide to praying in the home, and it's another one of these great. And I'll put a link in the show notes.
Right.
It's one of these great resources for this sort of stuff, for how to live, in your family life. Yeah, I mean, it can be as simple as kneeling down with your kids at night with prayer, when they say their prayers at bed, you always have the traditional view of the kids kneeling at their bed. Well, you know what? That's a great image. Yeah. And that's something if you join them where it's not just go say your prayers, but if you actually kneel down with them and say your prayers with them, and again, even if it's simple as just saying an Our Father or a Hail Mary and a Glory Be with your kids every night. Yes.
Great.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously a rosary is wonderful, Divine Mercy chaplets, spend lots of time praying. That's wonderful. But the more, just simple things with your kids, doing things like these blessings and these devotions and just praying with them, that's what they'll remember.
Yep. Hang holy art in your home, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Good classic artwork depicting holy, Jesus or Mary or that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's all good stuff. So, that's all great. Anything else we want to say about Epiphany? I guess.
No, again, just it's a great feast, and glad we're celebrating it. I hope your Epiphany, of course, those listening to it on the podcast, hope your Epiphany was a blessed one. And since Tom has given me the obvious hint, this is a good time to take a break. And, once again, thank you for listening to Let's Talk. We do appreciate all our listeners. We appreciate everyone that enjoys our podcast, and we hope you're sharing our podcast. Share it with others to listen to what we have to say, liking and subscribing and all those good things that you can do. You can share the posts on Facebook. You can leave comments on iTunes. We really appreciate those, of course. They help us to be more recognized, especially by the iTunes algorithms that sit in the background to decide what podcasts to promote. So please do that. Give us good reviews and everything so people will join us and listen to what we have to say. Also, although our giving campaign ended at the end of the year, we still need your help. So please do go to sqpn.com/give. You can still join our Patreon campaign. There you can give however you can. Of course, our Patreons are ongoing giving and, a way to show your appreciation for what we do. And then, of course, we have other podcasts that we do and that you can discover if you haven't listened to them. Secrets of Star Trek, Secrets of Doctor Who, Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, which we mentioned earlier, where you'll be able to hear more at the end of the year about Epiphany, and many other podcasts and more we've got coming. We've got stuff in the woodworks that's coming out here pretty quick. Yeah.
So I would like to actually mention, you mentioned our patrons, and one of the things we're starting to do this New Year is to thank our patrons by name. As we go, our various supporters who support us in so many ways, and in every show we want to thank them. So if I could take a moment, I just want to thank a few of the folks. There's just a handful of people who've been helping us: Patrick W., Paul B., Stephen B., and Lawrence Smith. Thank you so much for your support and for all our supporters who make this show and all our shows possible.
Well, we really do appreciate the support because, and it's not just about money, although it is about money. Don't get me wrong. It's not about the money. Yeah, there is that aspect. We need the money. But it's also a way, we also understand that you wouldn't be giving if you didn't appreciate what we were doing. So we appreciate that and we thank you for that.
Right.
So we're going to shift gears now. Now, as we're talking about the Feast of the Epiphany, our bishops are not in their dioceses right now. Actually, one of them is in particular because it's going on in his diocese. But right now, the bishops are at my alma mater, where I got my theology degree, Mundelein Seminary outside of Chicago, on retreat. Mm-hmm. And, and kind of want to talk a little bit about that, not just about the retreat, but just, everything that's going on around it. Why it is so important that our bishops went for this time of retreat, and it is important. Of course, first of all, just the fact of retreat is important, it's one thing that we priests, bishops are all encouraged every year to take an actual retreat, not just a conference, not just get away on vacation, but to take an actual retreat for prayer. And that's what our bishops are doing now. Because it's a tough time for the church.
Right. And to be clear, this sort of retreat of all the U.S. bishops together is unusual.
Correct.
They meet a couple times a year in their regular U.S. Bishops' Conference meetings.
Correct.
And prayer happens at it, but that's a business meeting.
Right.
And I know people who for years have said, and I've been one of them, really they ought to get together and just pray.
Right.
No cameras, no outsiders, like, all the staff and bureaucracy, whatever, but get together as bishops, as our shepherds, and pray together. And I think that's
exactly.
I think that's a valuable thing for them to do.
Right. And I know bishops will gather by their regions. For those who don't know, the United States church is split into regions of, anywhere from, I guess, 3 to how many ever dioceses. So like we're in region 12, which is under the Archdiocese of Portland, Oregon. So it's an archdiocese with their other dioceses underneath them.
Right.
And I know our bishop will go to the retreat with the region 12 bishops, and other bishops do the same. So they do go on retreats as bishops, but for them to gather as a whole, all the bishops in the United States, is pretty incredible. And I think it's a good thing, because of why they were asked to do this. And they were asked to do this by Pope Francis. This is, not something, I don't know if there was already a thought behind it on the part of the U.S. bishops, but Pope Francis encouraged them to do it.
Right.
And so they took this time, this beginning of January, to do it because of the issues with the abuse scandal. You just got to lay it out there. That's why they're doing it.
Yep. So so to kind of the background is that 2018 was the sort of the resurgence of the scandal, as everyone knows. And this time it was much more about bishops behaving badly than any time before, as from what I recall. And some bishops have taken the hit on that.
Correct.
McCarrick, former Cardinal McCarrick.
Yep.
Cardinal Wuerl, some others who
Yes.
retired or resigned or otherwise were stripped of their office. And one of the big things that came up in November at the bishops' meeting was, well, what are we as brother bishops supposed to do about bishops who behave badly, who either themselves abuse or excuse abuse, and they were about to do something or to talk about something. There's there's so much complexity to this, so many different aspects of this. We can't get into it all, but that's when Pope Francis asked them to stop what they're doing and have a retreat where they will pray about this, and then in next month, in February, there'll be a worldwide meeting of bishops in Rome to kind of talk about this whole thing. So
and not every bishop will be in Rome, but it'll be representatives from each of these conference of Catholic bishops. So every country or some regions of the world, there might maybe not every country has a conference of Catholic bishops, but there might be smaller groups of countries that have one. But they will send representatives to that meeting to discuss these issues.
Right.
It's. I think it's a good thing personally that they're doing this because it's been a very tumultuous time in the church.
Yeah.
Because it unfortunately it does seem like some bishops were a little bit tone deaf to what was going on. It does seem like there were some bishops who weren't quite aware at the severity of what was going on, at the anger in the church, and I know people are still quite upset about this. So hopefully this will be a time where they can kind of get a little better understanding of what's going on. Right. And to be fair, and I want to be clear about this, with few exceptions, I mean a small handful, you could probably count on both hands and still have fingers left over, the number of cases that have been brought up that haven't already been brought up at some point.
Right. Either the stuff that's in the news is either old news, like stuff that had been dealt with in the past, or by law enforcement, not just bishops hiding it in a file cabinet. Law enforcement or settlements,
lawsuits.
Right. They're either old or they are new cases, and which have to be dealt with. And unfortunately, human nature being what it is, we're never going to be necessarily free completely of that sort of thing. Sadly.
And again, by and large, when you look at cases that have arisen since 2002, when the what we call the Dallas Charter, the first policy on child protection came out, most of them, when a case would come up, they have been handled immediately.
Right.
They've been reported to the police. The priest has been removed from office. Sometimes, unfortunately, there's been overreactions where priests have been accused falsely.
Right.
But mostly, there have been cases where like I know of a case that happened recently where this priest had been serving for 50 years or something like that, and they found child pornography on his computer. This is something it was national news very recently. And he was removed from office and everything, and he's gone through trial and was found guilty and everything. I mean, it's been handled properly. As soon as there was an issue, it was handled as it should be. But there have been a couple of cases that were made public that weren't quite handled the way they should.
Right. Well,
and that led.
Yeah, even more, 2002's the Dallas Charter dealt with priests who had behaved badly. But it didn't really deal with the bishops who, what do we do about bishops who, not just commit abuse themselves, because that's pretty clear. What do we do about bishops who excused it, hid it, moved these guys around, allowed it to happen again through their own negligence? Mm-hmm. What do we do about that? And that wasn't dealt with. And that now they're having to deal with it because they didn't deal with it then. And there's all kinds of complications. And that's one of the things that's probably going to be discussed this week during the retreat. I mean, it's not really a business meeting, but that it's going to come up. It's just part of it.
The one thing that happened was Pope Francis sent a letter to the U.S. bishops, which is the USCCB has made it public. It's available on the USCCB website, and it's actually quite a good letter. I skimmed it. I didn't quite read it in depth, but it's quite a good letter that he wrote Of course, this is a translation. Pope Francis isn't very fluent in English. He can speak very little English, some, but not much.
Right.
So this, of course, is a translation of what he wrote. But he really is, in this letter, is encouraging them. He uses two lines that he pulled from the gospel. The first one is, "It cannot be like that with you." Talking about the scribes and the Pharisees and the position of power they have and their corrupt nature of you having that power and all that. Mm-hmm. And then the second one here, sorry, I'm scrolling through it. Second one is, "Anyone among you who aspires to greatness must serve the rest. Whoever wants to rank first among you must serve the needs of all." And he encourages the bishop to look at how they exercise their ministry in a new way. And it's something I agree with. Bishops, priests, lay people in the parish, parishes as a whole, dioceses as a whole. We need to be always looking at how do we exercise our ministry in a new way. We can't allow the barnacles of the past. We've got tradition, but then we've got these barnacles of the past that cling on to our organizations. And we've always done it that way. The 6 most deadly words in the church. We have always done it that way.
Right.
Yes. And we should be always looking at how do we exercise this ministry in a new way to promote the gospel, to promote people to discipleship, to bring people to Christ. Because that should be our primary goal. It should not be keeping the church doors open. It should be bringing people to Christ. The church doors will stay open if we bring people to Christ.
Right. There's a couple of aspects of the Pope's letter to the bishops that really kind of bear that out. And one thing he says is, and I'll paraphrase, and this is kind of based on a statement by Andrea Tornelli, who's the head of the Vatican Communications. But he says, the Pope says, avoid solutions that turn the bishops into a human resources department. So, in other words, it's not about organizational changes or bureaucratic structures or flow charts or organizational charts. So that sort of stuff. Yep. That's not going to fix it.
Right.
And he says, the remedy could prove ineffective if it's not accompanied by, and this is a quote from Pope Francis, by a change in our mindset, or metanoia, which is a loaded word, a theological word, our way of praying, our handling of power and money, our exercise of authority, our way of relating to one another and to the world around us. And then he also says, the other point is, trust and credibility won't be restored with better marketing.
Correct.
Those are two key elements, because so much of the response has involved bureaucracy, policies, things. I mean, sure, you need policies, you need these things, but it's insufficient. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to win people back by a better poster for the annual, capital campaign or the annual bishop's appeal or whatever. I mean, that's not how you win people, or by cool slogans, that you do for youth retreats or something. That's not going to win people back.
You mean Buddy Christ isn't gonna work? Buddy Jesus?
Right. I mean, all these things are fine, but they're insufficient. They're only scratching the surface of what's really needed, which is reform, personal reform.
Exactly. And that's the tough part in the church, I think, today is we really need a serious top-down rethinking of how we do basically everything. Right. Again, we don't throw out traditions. We don't throw out doctrine and dogma. We don't throw out the teachings of the church. We don't throw out, anything that Christ gave us and that the church has protected and defended for 2,000 years. Those do not change.
But there's a lot of things that we think people act like are doctrine and dogma, but are actually not.
Yeah. And I some canon lawyer friends who may or may not be listening might disagree with me on this, but maybe we need to rethink a lot of canon law, because there are things there that are good, that they're there to protect the church, they're there to protect the bishops, to protect the priests, to protect the lay people, and so on. But if there are things that have become a stumbling block,
right?
Where it doesn't need to be there.
Do they overprotect certain people to the detriment of the church, let's say?
Because that was when the bishops were going to vote on a new policy, admittedly, but a new policy for how to handle bishops who did not handle the abuse scandal well or cause these scandals. the argument from Rome was, don't do this because you'll violate canon law.
Right.
With some of these.
Right. Although there was some later news that maybe the problem wasn't so much that it would violate canon law, that the U.S. bishops didn't give Rome enough time to look at it and study the proposal. But regardless, the point is still you make is still good. I mean, we need to look at some more fundamental changes to things. Now, I have to say I kind of disagree a little bit with Pope Francis in some of his emphasis in the letter. For one thing, he tells them a lot of what not to do in their retreat, but not much in the way of what to do. But also he spends a lot of time talking about avoid division and disunity, avoid criticizing one another. And I'm like, if anything, they've been too reluctant to criticize one another. I mean, that's part of the problem is they've been too tolerant of their brother bishops behaving badly. So,
there is a principle in the clergy of fraternal correction, which isn't used as often as it should. Now, to be fair, fraternal correction is not getting on CNN and blasting your brother bishops. It's not, me writing a letter to the editor in the Billings Gazette saying, well, these priests in my diocese aren't doing it right, blah, 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 No. It's one-to-one talking to them, and that's one of the questions that was raised, especially around Cardinal McCarrick. Again, now just Archbishop McCarrick, because he's been removed from the cardinal, the rank of the cardinal. Why wasn't he called out? Why were there not everyone knew. I'm not the most plugged in person when it comes to church politics, and I had even heard rumors that he was I didn't know specifics, I didn't know details, but that there were problems with him. Why wasn't he called out? Why didn't more people say something? And, you get into politics and all that, and that's something I think the bishops do need to address is how do we make sure, again, privately, it doesn't need to be big public scandal again, but how do we say, this doesn't happen again? And if someone is found out doing it, it doesn't matter if they are, Father Corey Stika in Malta, Montana, middle of nowhere, United States, or Cardinal Archbishop of New York City. If someone does it, they're gone.
Well, and not just clear. I mean, it's clear that if they commit abuse, the policy is clear. But then, what do you do when there's any kind of question? But you're right. I mean, it shouldn't matter if you're a cardinal archbishop, whether you've covered up for something, whether you are doing something yourself, whether it's a crime or not, because some of what McCarrick was accused of was not criminal, but it's certainly immoral. The accusations, these are all alleged until proven. I get that, and I'm not judging his soul, but certainly what he's accused of was immorality. Those things we need to deal with all those things as they come up, or the church suffers, our mission suffers, our pews are emptying out because people are losing faith. They're literally losing faith, and that's the worst possible outcome.
And Jesus has some very strong words about this. Something about a millstone to the bottom of the sea. Better that you have a millstone tied around your neck and be thrown in the sea than have that one child is scandalized. And the Eye of the Tiber had a great one about bishops issued new millstones instead of crucifixes. It's a difficult thing, and we want to say that everything the church does is holy. And yes, the church is holy because it is Christ. It is the body of Christ here on earth. Christ is her head, and she will prevail until the end of time. That doesn't mean, however, that first of all, we human beings in it aren't going to do stupid, scandalous things. And it also doesn't mean that there aren't certain places where the church is going to fade away because of our stupid, scandalous things that we do.
Yes, the diocese where St. Augustine, one of our greatest saints, was bishop, no longer exists in any way, shape, or form.
There are a lot of places that were Catholic that aren't anymore. There are places there are parts of the world right now where the church is dying. And,
Right.
I can we say with definitive that is the United States? Well, some parts of the United States, yeah. I would argue up here, in these rural areas, the church is dying because it's not being passed on to further generations.
Right.
It's not being spread. We're not proclaiming the gospel. And these scandals aren't helping, because I've heard the comments about, those priests. Well, not all of us. Matter of fact, very few of us, but the ones who did, you found out who they were very loudly.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate to end to end on a sad note. I'm glad that the bishops are gathered in prayer. I pray that the Holy Spirit is going to speak to them and change hearts. Yeah. In fact, that's what we should all be praying for, is the work of the Holy Spirit among our bishops.
It's important. It's important to talk about these issues, because these are issues that, and just to kind of end this, I just want to say that to solve this issue is not just the bishops. I mean, yes, they're the ones with the power in the church, but you know who has the greatest power? Yeah. The lay people. Right. And we change the church by, first of all, becoming holy ourselves.
Yes.
And
raising our children to be holy.
Exactly. If we are holy, the priests will become holy. If the priests become holy, the bishops will become holy.
Right.
It really we want to say it's a top-down church. No, it's a bottom-up church.
It really is.
It's when the people are holy and they demand their priests to be holy, their priests will become holy.
Yep.
It's pretty incredible the way it works. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you for the good time for a segue over to our picks of the week.
Sure. So do you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
So every year at this time, we look at the beginning of the new year, and it's a lot of, it's a time for resolutions and that sort of stuff. Well, one of the things, a friend of mine, Jen Fulweiler, who people may know from Sirius XM's Catholic channel, she has a show there, several years ago created a Saint of the Year name generator, where if you go to the site and you click a button, it will give you the name of a saint and a little bit of information about them, and that's your saint for the year. You're going to pray for their intercession, find out more about them, let them inspire you. She's expanded it, because now it'll also give you an inspirational word at random, that is your word for the year. Some people have kind of been like, mine is farewell. Why? What am I losing this year? Where am I losing my job? No, but some of that's up for interpretation for you to think about and pray about, the Holy Spirit to inspire you. But if you go to wordoftheyear.me, it will show you a word, and then you'll get a saint as well. So that's my pick. Some years it's been very surprising to see. So if you click on it, it gives you the word. Mine is just now I chose is fruitful, which is nice, and because maybe we're going to have another kid. I'll have to let Melanie know about that. At least it wasn't multiply. But and then my saint of the year is, let's see. So you click the button for saint of the year. It stops, asks you to pray, which is very nice, and then you click it, and my saint of the year, as I do this, is Saint Wenceslas. Nice. We just passed the Feast of Stephen, so I like good King Wenceslas. What was
the website again?
So it's wordoftheyear.me.
I was trying every combination but that.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes, of course. But,
I wanted to pull up my word here.
Yeah.
Unplug. Yeah. That's this thing knows me too well already.
The Holy Spirit.
And then for the saint, which is Saint's Name Generator .com, by the way.
Yeah.
Miguel Augustin Pro. Blessed Miguel Augustin Pro. Another good one.
That's a good one.
This thing knows me a little too well, I think. That's scary.
It's the Holy Spirit.
Jen, really. Have you been snooping on me or something? If she happens to listen to this.
So that's my pick. It's a good one. It's fun.
Excellent. Well, I'm shifting gears. Something I had no idea was out there, and I'm glad is. And let's see if I can get this to work and see if I can give you a hint of what it is. It's a game. It's an app.
Okay.
It'll take just a second, and come on. Of course, it's going to take its time. There we go.
Waka 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 waka.
Of course, everybody's going to recognize. Everybody who's played video games recognize. Of course, I grew up with classic video games,
Yes.
and grew up with. I still to this day, if I see a PacMan or a Ms. PacMan machine sitting somewhere, I got to throw some quarters in it.
Yeah.
It's got to happen. So this is an official PacMan app. Oh, turn down the volume just so you don't have to sit there and listen to the music. But of course, it's got classic Pac-Man. You've got the classic maze. Mm-hmm. You've got all kinds of different. You got other mazes. You got other events. One thing I don't like about it is a pay to play or free to play game.
Oh yeah.
But that just means you play it a little bit, and of course you earn money, currency for it, and you earn all these different things. They've got tournaments, and they got like they've got a Christmas event that's going on and things like that. So they're different mazes with different themes, but it's still basic Pac-Man. And I'm not usually a fan of playing video games that require a joystick on phones. I can never do touchscreen joysticks. I'm just not there.
Right.
I got to have the real deal. Like I've got sitting in here, I've got an Xbox, Xbox 360 controller I keep in my room for the few times I get to play video games off my machine here. But, this works well because you just swipe the direction you want Pac-Man to go. And of course, if you've played a lot of Pac-Man or Ms. Pac-Man, you don't have to hold the joystick. You just tap the direction you want the character to go. So it works really well for the swipes. You just have a little section at the bottom of the screen. You swipe up, down, left, or right, and Pac-Man moves that way. And then, of course, it's just Pac-Man. You remember how to do it. You eat the dots, you eat the power, you run away from the ghosts, eat the power pellets, you eat the ghosts, repeat. Yep. You got the fruit and everything. And it's a lot of fun, and it's been kind of fun to play. I drained the battery on the phone one night playing it. The first night I found it, you know how that goes. Again, it does have the free to play element. So you like there are certain parts. As far as I can tell, you can play the classic Pac-Man as long as you want. You could just keep playing and playing and playing and playing. Some of the other special ones, they do take time to refurbish. You do have daily quests that you can accomplish. You do have levels that you can open, so there's all this. You can pay money to it if you want. You don't have to. It seems like it's pretty fair all in all. Well, like for example, the one that I've got here, the Christmas quest, you get snowballs that will freeze the ghost randomly.
Oh, fun.
So a ghost will chase after you, and all of a sudden a snowball will fly out of Pac-Man's hat and freeze the ghost. Then you can eat the ghost, and things like that. So check it out. If you love the old Pac-Man, if you used to play it like I do, if you still play it like I do, you might enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and a lot of memories playing that game all the way around the screen.
And both Android and iOS.
Yes, it is both Android and iOS, which you would expect. Of course, I've got Android, so you'd expect they'd have it on both. So it's a lot of fun. You'll waste time eating those stupid dots like you used to as a kid, and love every minute of it.
Yes, and kids, ask your parents.
I hope hopefully a lot of kids know who Pac-Man is, but I know that Pac-Man's also going on 40 years old.
Yeah, something like
because it came out, I think 81. I want to say 82, somewhere in there.
Yep.
So it's long in the tooth, but still loved. I've been eating a lot of dots for those years.
Yes, a lot of dots.
Yep. So,
cool.
Well, where can people find you, Dom?
So you can find me at SQPN. I'm all over that, sqpn.com. But if you want to find my personal stuff, you can go to betnet.com, bettnet.com, which is once again live. My site was down for several days earlier this week and driving me crazy. But you can find my links to social media and stuff there as well. So that's probably the best way.
Excellent. And of course, you can find me at my website, frcorey.org. It's where I post my homilies. Usually, I had some sound system issues, so not all of them got recorded, but oh well. You can also, of course, find me here on SQPN at Secrets of Star Trek, Secrets of Doctor Who, our upcoming Secrets of Technology. We'll be starting that here in just a couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that. Where else can you find me? Well, of course, Facebook and Twitter, and Fr Corey Stika is my Twitter handle. I've been doing a little bit more there, and Father Corey Stika is my Facebook page. Once again, we encourage you to send us feedback at letstalk@sqpn.com. Keep an eye out on the SQPN website for when we go live with this on Saturday mornings. And finally, again, please do check out sqpn.give if you weren't able to give during our giving campaign. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless. There.
Excellent.
Right at an hour.
Yes. Very good. Good timing.
So we were going to talk for a half an hour again.
Yeah, that's how we do it. We get talking.
Yeah. And thanks again to those watching live. You know, we've had, looks like we have a good turnout. So this is great.
Yeah.
Mary and Zena and Brenda and Rob.
Yeah. And
glad y'all could join us.
If we start scheduling these and people know that it's going to be, every week, it's, around the same time, we'll grow our audience of live participants. We love when people comment and share and become part of the conversation we're having. So
yeah, absolutely.
This is great.
And
this is our community podcast, as you said.
Yeah, exactly. So we want your involvement. We want you to respond to us, what you think, whether you think we're right, wrong, or indifferent.
Right. Excellent.
So
cool. All right, folks. We're going to end the live stream now, and we'll see you next week on Let's Talk.
Sounds good. See ya.